Welcome back. We're starting our next hour of DLD Day with some elementary science brought to you by Amy Scott from Providence Elementary. She's going to be talking about how to use and create hyperdocs with the elementary science curriculum. But remember, just because it's elementary science does not mean it cannot be modified for middle school and high school as well.
And different subjects besides science.
Right.
So if you're tuned in live and you want to kind of connect with Amy during her broadcast, there is a back channel document that's located on our EdTech Hub, which is at this link, bit.ly/DLDCCPS. That's all lowercase. Also, if you can only tune in for this video and you want to watch other videos, we are posting them as we go throughout the day today. So this is your one-stop shop for anything Digital Learning Day today. So with that being said, we're going to turn it over to one of my favorite teachers, Amy Scott.
All right, take it away, Amy.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm going to do a little screen sharing here quick. So, share. All right, guys, thanks for having me on today. I wanted to talk about how I use Hyperdocs in my classroom, and overall, I've had a lot of success with it this year. I've used it actually in both, sorry about that, in both science and social studies. So today I want to really talk about how I use it in my science class. And before I begin, just so you know, Hyperdocs is what's considered to be a single document that kind of evolves over a series of lesson plans. And it's not just a bunch of links thrown into one Google Doc. It's a collection of highly curated links that you have put some thought into and will help as you pace your lesson out over a series of days. So just keep in mind, Hyperdocs are not just one document. So something to keep in mind is that you're constantly striving to connect your 5 C's when using your Hyperdocs. I can't come in. Sorry, I'm in my principal's office right now. You want to think about communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and also digital citizenship. Okay. I can't come in right now. Okay. So the first thing you might want to do when using a Hyperdoc is check CNET first for your resources. So I just want to just show you where they are with the science department. Marcia Rogers has done a great job putting Hyperdocs into the 5th grade curriculum.
Hey, Amy.
Yeah?
You might want to hit screen sharing again. I still see your beautiful face.
Oh, you do? I'm so sorry. Okay, hold on. Go back to that. How did I click that? Thank you for. I'm gonna hit it again. Okay, share.
So now, yep, sharing. Good. So now just.
Okay, I'm good. Okay. Oh, now I've got Sharon's phone ringing. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my presentation.
You're doing great.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to CNET where we can find our Hyperdocs. We'll just ignore the phone in the background. So Marcia has put it in the multimedia folder with each CNET link. Okay, I just hung it up. Oh, we're running slow today, guys. Sorry about that. So go to CNET first. Like I said, Marcia's put them in the multimedia folders. The first thing you want to do, though, once you find a Hyperdoc that you want to use, you always want to make a copy of it. And what I found that I had to do when using it is I had to tweak it for my. So once I played around with my Hyperdoc, I pushed it out through Google Classroom. And I'm going to go to my Google Classroom and show you an example of one I've used. This one was on cells, just finished up with my 5th graders. And something with the cells unit, there was a lot of vocabulary with that unit. So it's quickly loading. So I'm going to take you to my cells Hyperdoc that I used with my science kiddos. And here we go. So One thing that I added that was a little bit different from what the science department is I actually added a column of students to finish work completed by. So here's the cells hyperdoc I used. You want to go ahead and make a copy first. And as you'll see, the hyperdoc, you've got kind of 2 columns here, and time to explore. So this is when you're first introducing your unit. You're getting your students into the material. And clicked on this great cell model, and I wanted my kids to tell me 3 to 5 things they learned after engaging with this pretty cool cells model. So as you can see, they can kind of click around and get some information about mitochondria, nucleus. And so going back to the hyperdoc, they just had to tell me 3 things that they learned in sentences. And that's what they were going to put in this column right here. And I gave them a due date. What I found as I was working with them through this hyperdoc, some students finished quicker than others, as with all things in the classroom. So as students finished, because it's more of a self-paced lesson, they were able to scroll down through and pick up some other activities. So this kind of section allowed my early finishers to do some differentiation. There was a rap song they could have listened to. There was some games they could have clicked on. So I took my time as I went through, and I kind of broke it apart into days. That helped me kind of keep on pace with what I was doing day to day with my lessons. So one day we talked about cells. The next day it was animal cells. Then we did plant cells. So often I started my lesson with just some notes and just some whole group stuff. And then after I finished that, I had my students jump into their hyperdoc because that's when the engagement really started to occur. One thing I found that I was working through is they had to take a screenshot, and they had to watch a video and screenshot a quiz that they took after watching a video. They then had to screenshot and put their results over here on this column. And screenshotting on a Chromebook is different than screenshotting on the desktop we have. So I pulled a kid aside, one of my tech-savvy kids, and we played around with how to do a screenshot. And once I showed him, he picked it up pretty quick because I knew that this might be a struggle for some of my students in class. So as they were working on this section of this hyperdoc, after he took his quiz and screenshotted his results, he was able to quickly buzz around the room and help other students. So I've kind of found that when I'm working with hyperdocs with my students, I'm less of a teacher and more of a facilitator. I'm creating little mini teachers within my classroom, and they're able to go and help other students as they're engaging with the material. So that was kind of a really cool side effect. It took us several days to work through this hyperdoc. That was one thing I'd found when I had done one earlier in the year. It took a little bit longer than I had originally given time for. So I made sure I gave my students enough in-class time. Often they were working on this at the end of the day. So some students even went and worked on it at home. We're not at the point in 5th grade where we can take our Chromebooks home at evening. So they're pretty much using their in-school time to complete their work. So anyway, that was just one hyperdoc lesson that I did. And I'm going to go back here. Okay. Couple other things. Always check your share settings with your hyperdoc. The first one I did was actually in a history lesson. And even though I pushed it out through Google Classroom, I recognized that some of the links that I had stuck in with it weren't set to the correct share settings. So I had to go back and adjust that after I'd already pushed out the assignment. So I kind of learned by doing it wrong the first time that you have to always go and check your share settings first. That's especially important if you're making a pre-made hyperdoc. One way you can kind of cheat that is share it with another teacher and make sure that they can go in and access all the links. Today, during my morning meeting, I asked my students, I kind of prepped them and told them that I was going to be talking about hyperdocs, and I asked if they liked using it, and many of them raised their hands and indicated that they did like it. And I asked them what about the hyperdoc they specifically liked, and 2 students gave me some really interesting answers. One student said that they enjoyed having all the information in one link, in one document. So they weren't constantly going in and out of Google Classroom to go to specific links. They liked that it was all in one spot. Another student said it allowed them to work at their own pace. So I thought that was interesting just from my students, what their initial thoughts on the Hyperdocs were. Just some final tips as you start to use these in your own classroom. Probably the biggest one is giving students enough time. I think I touched on that earlier. And allow students to help one another. It just gives them a lot of voice and choice in their classroom. And it makes them feel good that they're learning information and then they can share it with other students. I have found that with one of the Hyperdocs I used, students had to make a copy of a couple of the links, and I had to go back and show them how to add that to their Google Classroom assignment in the assignment that I had pushed out. So once I showed one kid how to do it, again, I could, he could quickly turn around and go around the room and help and show other kids how to do it. So I'm hoping at this point maybe that this is something that's piqued your interest and you want to start maybe using in your own classroom. Again, Science Department, Marsha Rogers has done a great job at already creating some Hyperdocs for 5th grade teachers. And they're in that multimedia folder. So before you start your next unit, please go to the multimedia folder first, see what's already made. Somebody else has probably already done the work for you. Another place you could go is to hyperdoc.co, and there's already templates and choices because hopefully maybe you'll want to try it in another subject area. Like I said, I've used them in both social studies and science, and it's just been a really fun way to digitally engage my students in their classroom. So hopefully I've given you guys some, excitement about trying them in your classroom. Marsha, thanks for putting them out there, and hopefully you guys can get on board and try them in your own classroom. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Amy. We got lots of good ideas, and I like that you showed us some ways to get started on our own if we want to.
And important takeaway, a hyperdoc is more than just a doc with hyperlinks. There is a methodology behind it. So thanks for pointing all of that out. So coming up next is Rachel Hill out of Salem Middle School, and she's going to be talking about online science interactives with Google Drawings. See you soon.